So I already saw a part of this interview, specifically here with Taylor Lorenz and Dan Clancy talking about TwitchCon, talking about some of the failures of TwitchCon in terms of the Emiru situation. And I felt that Dan Clancy's sort of response, albeit accurate, was rather wanting. It is an accurate position to hold to say that the reason why an Emiru situation happens is because of the general issues that are, sort of plaguing society. I don't think that is an accurate statement at all whatsoever. I don't think so whatsoever. Here's the difference, though. Dan Clancy is the CEO of a very, very profitable. I like to think it's a very profitable corporation that in Twitch. As much as like all the like 3IQ right wingers like to pretend that it's not, they haven't presented like any evidence to suggest that Twitch is not profitable. Like it still hasn't been dropped by Amazon because at the very least Amazon can very easily use it as a vestige for an advertising platform to attract advertisers to a platform where the quote unquote demo, that being young people, will be attracted to it and will want to participate in that sort of space and get advertising for, whatever bumblefuck fucking companies decide to advertise on Twitch specifically, right? Like that's not hyperbolic or ridiculous to say whatsoever. It's that's one of those things where it's just like the most forehead obvious nonsense to begin with, right? Duh. People want to advertise where there is the demo, quote unquote. However, the problem with this answer, in terms of saying what the societal issues that Twitch has to deal with, and that it's difficult for them to deal with, is it gets undercut by the fact that specifically with Dan Clancy, with Twitch, it is a corporation with a lot of money and power and the ability to facilitate changes within those environments. They have power in this situation. They have responsibility to those women content creators. And seemingly, he wanted to shirk that responsibility. Now, obviously, I assume this interview is going to be about other stuff, blah, blah, blah. And Taylor Lorenz herself has also talked about the sort of problems within these spaces in terms of misogyny. Again, that is an accurate point that a lot of dumbasses will take out of context and go after Taylor Lorenz over for the fact that she's seen as like a social, like an internet pariah, basically. Just simply due to the fact that there are a bunch of schizophrenic freaks, specifically H3H3, who prefer to just be upset about the fact that Taylor Lorenz doesn't really personally like him and thinks of him as like an ostensible, miserable fucking freak. Because, let's be honest here, people like H3 are ostensible, miserable fucking freaks. I don't think that's ridiculous or hyperbolic to say. So I mostly wanted to take a look at this interview simply just due to the fact that I was rather curious for as to what are the topics that are bridged, sort of covered, and talked about. I wanted to see. So, is Twitch hostile to women creators? CEO Dan Clancy speaking at TwitchCon. Why don't we take a look?
A lot of their rise has come because they just literally will create hundreds of clips from a single stream, often posting them while the stream is still on.
As live streaming becomes an increasingly dominant...
Is that... Okay, it seems a little out of context. Are we talking about, like, content creators, I suppose? I mean, that's true, yeah. Yeah, people do be making lots of clips. There's literally... Like, there's dedicated channels on YouTube that are successful on YouTube itself that are just designed to clip moments from streamers, archetypes of streamers, specific streamers, what have you. Listen, we all know about, like, the Clipper channels, okay? Very, very, very commonplace.
Form of entertainment, Twitch is at a crossroads. On one hand, the platform is an undeniable powerhouse in the live streaming space. It has evolved from a primarily desktop streaming platform.
Wait, $46 billion product? Huh? Amazon? I thought Amazon only purchased that shit for about $970 million. Well, they've made quite the fucking profit.
to a mobile streaming app that facilitates hours of just chatting and IRL streams. Soon, you'll even be able to stream to Twitch via Meta's AI Ray-Ban smart glasses. But not everything is rosy. The platform has struggled to effectively monetize, monthly usage has fallen off since 2020 peaks, and it's facing increased competition from TikTok Live and YouTube. The culture on Twitch has also been called toxic and hostile for women creators. Dan Clancy is the CEO of Twitch, and it's his job to navigate these choppy waters. He sat down with me this weekend at TwitchCon to discuss how Twitch is evolving, its broader role in the creator economy over the next 10 years, increased competition from Hollywood, and how he thinks about balancing streamers' creative freedom with safety concerns. Here's our interview. Dan, thanks so much for chatting with me.
Great to meet you.
Also, huge thank you to Stream Elements for setting all of this up.
Oh, nice.
I could not get it set up myself. First of all, I want to ask you, how would you define Twitch's mission in 2025?
I think our mission in 2025 is more relevant than ever, and it fits, as we talk about creating belonging through our streamers and the communities they create. I often talk about how, in many ways, social media has become antisocial. Sitting and swiping in your phone doesn't connect you to people, and I think that's one reason why we've seen this enthusiasm around Twitch.
That's a pretty good point, I would actually say. I kind of agree with that position, yeah. Social media has had a very, very adverse effect in terms of people's ability to socialize. I don't think that's ridiculous to say. I think that is an accurate point. We all know, about how 3IQ and stupid, a lot of these stupid, dumb fucking far righters and even a lot of left wingers can be on fucking social media. More so, this is more predominant on the right. The general sort of ostensible antisocial behavior that a lot of people seemingly like to engage in all the time, and it's just brother, why are you such a fucking freak? Why are you acting in the way that you act? It's fucking weird, little bro.
Because I think people more than ever are looking for authentic connections with both other people, but also with the people, in this creator economy. There's a distance when you're just watching something on, a short form platform, and there's an authenticity that, you can't hide when you stream. And so I think it's really going to the roots of what has made the foundation of Twitch, which is really community.
I feel like every app has been entering the live streaming space lately. Obviously TikTok's been investing so heavily in live. We've got Substack Live now even. We're also seeing a lot more multi-streaming, right? Which is, sort of becoming more of a thing. How do you think Twitch differentiates itself in this increasingly crowded live streaming market?
Now that's all, everybody building a live streaming, it's actually been happening for quite some time. There was a period when YouTube, part of Google, Facebook, and Microsoft were all coming after Twitch. They were all doing big contracts to recruit our top streamers, and Twitch stayed on top. Mixer shut down. Facebook just sunsetted their live streaming, Facebook Live. It's still a valuable part of YouTube, and as you said, TikTok's doing it now. But I think the reason we were able to stay where we were during that period is the same reason why now I actually think it's good for us. Twitch is a community-centric live streaming app, and we focus on live streaming. And it's really important that the way you get a sense of community is that shared experience together, and that requires people to pull up and share and stay for a while. If you're watching live streaming on one of the other platforms, if you take TikTok, you watch it, you've been programmed that if you get a little bored, your mind just says, come on, swipe. Let's see what's next, right? If you are watching a YouTube video live and you get a little bored, your eyes glance to the bottom right. I was joking once with T-Pain, I said, you know who your big competition is on YouTube? It's this guy named T-Pain. He makes really good VODs, and someone's watching you live and your eye just drifts. Because again, you're programmed whenever you're watching a video, when you're watching VODs, to look to the bottom right. And so then you don't get that sense of community. And so I always say, if people are just every now and then dabbling, it's use whatever platform. But if you want to build a community that is really there for you, then do it on Twitch. And once you build a community, it's yours.
To be fair here, right? The idea of because this is the sort of general consensus, I think, with all of these platforms. TikTok is for fucking brain rot, right? If you just want to sit there in your bed swiping away for hours at a time and then not recognizing where the time just went, that's exactly what TikTok is for. TikTok is excellent at just turning off your brain and just sort of having engagement, non-engagement, I suppose, for lack of a better term. For YouTube, it's about discoverability. If you want to make a name for yourself, essentially become more out there, I suppose, in the sort of general content creation, social media environment, YouTube is technically much better at that in terms of how the algorithm works, in terms of functioning to help build a platform, I suppose, for lack of a better term. But also, it's also pretty bad because very often the algorithm will push itself to stupid dipshits who I say this for my own videos mostly, where I make fun of dumbasses like fucking Tectone and Asmongold, those miserable fucking freaks. It's also good at attracting, I suppose, haters and people who do not like anti-fans, I guess, for lack of a better term. Mostly haters, I think, is a correct, much better term. People who just do not like you as a creator or as a person or whatever, simply because you are willing to speak your mind and talk about, X content creator is a miserable pile of shit for X, Y, and Z fucking reasons. You doing call outs of people for correct reasons, oh, because they said a certain thing that's bad for these reasons, blah 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 blah. You know, like people like standing on some form of like fucking principle or whatever. You know, a ton of different fucking things. Another thing is where was I going with this? Oh, Twitch. Where does Twitch fit in all of this? Twitch. The main benefit of Twitch is the culture. I should know. I've been on Twitch since before Twitch was even Twitch. Before, during the days of fucking Justin TV, okay? I used to watch all the fucking old StarCraft streams. You know, your Idras, your Bombers of the world. These are old names. In Control, Naniwa, all these motherfuckers, okay? All of the fucking old names. Listen, if you back in like 2010, 2011, those the names are gonna fucking ring a bell, okay? That's when I was like watching Twitch during the old like raise your fucking dongers days, like everyone get in here. Well, that was a Grim Patron meme. You know, you get the whole fucking gist, right? That was sort of like the idea behind that is that Twitch, its culture, its chat, the third party, eventually the rise of like the third party APIs and differing applications that sort of made Twitch chat this more sort of like cultural sort of environment where people really enjoyed engaging with the chat, engaging with the community. Because, you know, it felt like you were a lot closer, I suppose, to said community or whatever. And these are sort of things in terms of like interacting with people in the chat and whatnot. Okay, everyone loves they fucking Pepe the Frog emotes. I also would credit like during the days of like 2014, 2016, you know, the post-Trump first-term election / post-Gamergate stuff. Twitch is probably the biggest reason for as to why Pepe got reclaimed from 4chan in the far right. I will solemnly fucking say this because of just how ostensibly further and like more progressive the sort of community became as the far right was starting to further insulate itself and I don't know, start like starting fights with one another over like the most stupid, idiotic, petty shit. Because again, Ouroboros of fascism, yada yada yada. You know, the whole lefty fucking cuck meme, blah 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 blah. I've done this fucking spiel before. If there is one thing that the far right is consistently very, very good at, it is eating their own and eating itself. And that's sort of like, I would say, the sort of broader sort of consensus. I guess I should throw in Kick there. Kick is for if you have no scruples and you just want to forehead make money and you don't give a shit about like the heinous platforming content that you're doing. Like Kick is just a toxic shithole of an environment. So yeah, we'll throw in Kick in there as well because I hate Kick. Yeah, I hate Kick. Fuck Kick. But yeah, if you want to talk about like, I guess it mostly depends on your goals, right? I think it mostly just depends on your goals, what exactly you want to achieve when you're engaging in all of these differing fucking platforms. Do you want community? Do you want culture? Do you want to just spread and get a bunch more people? There's so many differing sort of goals and objectives that I think you could get, or some shit. I have no idea, to be quite honest. But yeah, like generally speaking, the argument, of course, of saying that like, yeah, Twitch has always been about the community and the culture and whatnot. I want to say that's still pretty much the case, right? Like building a lot of social bonds with one another. Obviously, it's not a substitute for real, genuine, like touching grass human interaction. But I would say like I don't know, in terms of like cultivating like online friendships. It's either that or fucking Discord. I think Discord also does a pretty good job at it as well. But well, if you ignore all the weirdo sort of servers and shit like that, there's always exceptions to the rule and whatnot, obviously. But you know, I like to think, you know, try to be somewhat positive. That Twitch, generally speaking, does a pretty good job at it. At least that's what I like to think.
because the affinity on Twitch is with the creator, not the platform. If I asked you who are your top 5 TikTok creators, you'd have a glazed look over your face because you wouldn't be able to think of 5 that are your top 5. If you ask any Twitch fan who are your top 5 Twitch streamers, they'll give you the answer right away because the affinity is with the creator. And so we feel really good, and I think other people being in this space expose more people to live streaming, both from a viewer side and from a creator side, so I think it just helps us.
I feel like, part of what you're talking about TikTok and YouTube, though, is the discovery aspect, and those platforms have succeeded so successfully in discovery. What are you doing from a Twitch standpoint in terms of boosting discovery? Are you leaning into more algorithmic recommendations? Like, what are you doing to ensure that new streamers can find their audiences and build that community?
Yeah, so part of this is so many platforms, they just look at themselves when they view the world, and it just makes no sense. You need to think of yourself in a broader ecosystem and don't just stare at yourself. And everybody wants to say, well, I want everybody to do everything on my app. That's not what the user wants. So we absolutely are focusing on things for discovery on our app, but the difference you're talking about is more a difference of short form versus long form. And short form content, if on TikTok, you might see 2,000 creators in a week. Yeah. On YouTube, you might see 500. On Twitch, you might see 10. And so the thing that creates the community on Twitch, the fact that you stay on the live stream in a long form experience, is the thing that makes discovery hard. So we absolutely are investing in helping people create clips, but we're very clear we don't want to be a short form content. We are a live platform. That's why you get community. So we're investing for our platform, but a big part is
so here's the thing with what Dan Clancy is saying here specifically. I don't disagree with this, right? Like, I wholeheartedly do agree with this position, but here's the problem. The current social media environment that we find ourselves under has basically cultivated a position that it is all about short form sort of content and a inner desire, I suppose, for lack of a better term. Maybe, no, that's not correct. Not a desire. A lot of this is byproducts of Ronald Reagan and also George W. Bush, right? No Child Left Behind, the supposed reforms, but in reality, privatization of the education center. I talked about this before in my Death of Subjectivity video, and the broader byproducts of that death of subjectivity, the people's incapability of being able to fit in another person's shoes. This is the sort of contemporary philosophy that I like to engage in terms of a lot of the assessments that I have of differing political situations. Engage when I do criticisms of different content creators, blah 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 blah. It's the sort of like philosophical structure that I like to generally sort of engage in, right? This idea that people are just seemingly and wholeheartedly incapable of ever wanting to fit in another person's shoes. They can't ever seem to think how they want to think and only prefer to engage in rather dogmatic forms of thinking and are unable to engage in any sort of like creative lateral thinking. That's how I sort of like to see it. And I think in that sort of environment, short form content is highly, highly successful. It's simple. You don't have to think about it all that much. You can just turn your brain off, consume thousands upon it and of those videos every single day, and there's not really any sort of, not consequences, but there's like, really, it doesn't really mean much of anything to anybody. And obviously, like, a lot of sort of content creation platforms are going to try to catch up with that because it's the current fucking fad. Capitalism's got a capitalism, right? You have to be able to make money. And that's the biggest problem. Capitalism has to fucking capitalism. As Mark Fisher himself said during Capitalist Realism, the capitalist job is to attempt to commodify and be able to make money out of anything possible. And you're starting to see this specifically with a lot of these AI companions. Listen, we all know about the Misa Elon Musk LARP cope shit with the fucking Grok Misa LARP shit from fucking Death Note, okay? We know about that stuff. These motherfuckers, and this is as Mark Fisher himself said, are now trying to commodify social interactions. And this is intended. We've seen videos of these fucking AI companion creator companies, I suppose, talk about, like, yeah, the purpose of this is to make you waste your time, to make you just sit there and just waste and wallow away. They are trying, and they have been trying to do this ever since the 50s. And what I mean is capitalists, the corporation, the rich, the bourgeoisie, what term, what have you, have been trying to commodify and take away that which makes union power and worker power strong. And that is people's social bonds. The ability for people to be able to interact with one another. Suburbanization, car infrastructure, the fundamental sort of destruction of education, right? Because again, school is where a lot of kids go to learn how to interact with people, to learn how to build social bonds with other people, instead of, because they just want school to essentially be factories that produce dutiful little workers who will listen to their fucking bosses. That they want to do anything, and I mean anything possible, to take away the ability for people to be able to socially interact with one another. Because corporations, the bourgeoisie, they know that is what makes them strong. Being able to divide and conquer every single person, right? Because if you're dealing with tons of different individuals, that's not a very difficult problem. But if those individuals come together and try to create some form of collective unit, that's a lot more difficult to take care of. A unit, of course, with similar goals, wanting to fight for their rights, wanting to fight for their wages, wanting to fight for a whole host of manner of things, for their ability to express themselves socially, or in civil rights and whatnot, right? And that is what the bourgeois, the capitalists, the rich, the billionaires, what have you, whatever term you want to use, that is what they are most afraid of. They are afraid of people's social bonds, and they are going to do anything possible to fucking destroy that. And, I'm going on a little bit of a ramble, a little bit of a tangent. I'm just like, it's a stream of consciousness, right? It's a whole sort of like smattering and fucking saying of a bunch of different shit and whatnot. The reason why these motherfuckers will do literally anything possible to try to take away those social bonds is because, and I mean this unironically, but monkey together is strong. Stronger bonds are what makes humanity and the sort of not only just humanity, but that just basically is what makes humans be the main people who are on top of the fucking food chain, right? It's all about the fucking social bonds, and being able to come together collectively is what has made us the undisputable masters of nature in terms of planet Earth in particular. And these motherfuckers, these billionaire rich dipshits want to fucking destroy that under any fucking circumstance.
Is also getting people to take their content from cool stuff that happens on Twitch, post it on other platforms, because you want your content to find your audience. And that's no different if you create a podcast, right? And you distribute your podcast through various different platforms, but then you create shorts that you'll put on TikTok, because that's how you are finding your audience, not just new viewers, but also how you stay top of mind with your existing viewers.
You talked about the kind of the unique bond that people have, and I've seen it so much firsthand of like this very deep parasocial bond, I would say, with Twitch streamers really specifically. I think that reaches a level that doesn't even happen on platforms like YouTube and others. Obviously, we saw one Twitch streamer yesterday, Emiru, get assaulted by a male fan, and a lot of streamers have, especially female streamers, have talked about, the danger that they feel from these sort of toxic, I guess, parasocial kind of creeps. What are you guys doing to prioritize safety? Because I know also a bunch of Twitch content creators said that they were too scared to even come to TwitchCon this year, just in case something like what happened yesterday.
So I believe this was the clip that we saw earlier when I did my initial coverage of this sort of situation, right? It is pertaining to this, more than likely. So I believe that we're about to get into this. Again, my sort of position on this is the exact same as always. Let's be honest here. Dan Clancy, you are the head of a very profitable fucking corporation. You have the resources and power to be able to ultimately do something about this. Again, I'm not going to fault him in saying that part of it is because of the current societal material conditions on the ground. I do agree with that position. However, you have power in this situation to be able to do something about it. To be able to create that sort of fucking change. Of course, I don't want to say like the buck ultimately, like, because you can't stop parasociality and like parasocial relationships like that. Those are always going to be in existence to some form or another. As always, like, obviously you can't do anything about parasocial relationships, right? There's nothing you can do about that. Like, at a certain point, to a certain extent, those are always going to exist. There's not all that much anyone can fucking do about that in particular, right? Like, I'm not fucking stupid, obviously, but you can do something about heavily trying to mitigate those sort of problems, right? Like, I've said this before. Yeah, like, we could talk about all of the security measures and extra cameras and everything. That's not going to do anything to stop from, like, a parasocial weirdo fan from, like, running up on someone and just, like, I don't know, trying to assault someone, right? Because there's still all the kick heinous streamers. We've talked about that before. And part of it is, like, Twitch is doesn't have, like, the mind reading, mind control fucking devices to know of everyone's sort of fucking intentions before they do it, right? Like, because I don't think that there was much Twitch security could have done to stop that fucking dude from cutting in line and just trying to sexually assault Emiru, right? I think that shit was always going to fucking happen because there's no way of knowing that fucking dude's intentions when he was doing that. Like, I mean, some dude, like, we can talk about, and I would agree with this position, how there should have been some dude immediately trying to step in to try to stop that fucking behavior, and that I can agree with, absolutely. I don't disagree with that position whatsoever. But, like, it's one of those situations where it's just, like, knowing the intentions of somebody like that, you're not gonna fucking know that inherently, based off of someone who's just going to, like, walk up and just do that fucking shit randomly. Like, you're never going to fucking know the intentions of somebody, like, off the rip. Never. That's not how any of this shit fucking works. But, you know, like, could Twitch have provided personalized security guards for a lot of their sort of, like, main, bigger sort of creators in order to mitigate this problem? Absolutely, and I think they should have fucking done that. They certainly have the money to do that. They have the resources to be able to pull that shit off, and for whatever reason, they didn't do it. I mean, it makes you wonder why, doesn't it? It's just like, well, Twitch, there is stuff that you can do, and you have some fucking explaining to do. Like, why, Twitch, why didn't you fucking provide everything necessary to keep all your fucking content creators safe? What happened? And it's just like, well, you know, that shit's unfortunately fucking expensive. And it's just like, okay, and you're a highly profitable fucking corporation, Twitch. Like, you should be able to fucking take care of that shit, Twitch. Twitch, you can't be shirking your fucking responsibility in this particular instance, Twitch. What the fuck, bro? And, I mean, that's, like, sort of the general consensus, I suppose. That's, like, the main problem that I'm generally sort of fucking having here with, like, with Twitch specifically. It's just, like, for whatever reason, they seem to just want to shirk responsibility for a lot of the actions that they have / could be taking in order to essentially mitigate some of the problems that people are rightfully criticizing them for.
What happened?
Yeah, so the safety of our creators is the top priority. The challenge we face is a challenge in today's society. It's not limited to Twitch, it extends throughout our society. I do think that when you're live streaming, in many ways, since you control your community and you can ban people, you can, you know, make it so that...
Yeah, I have essentially, I've talked about this position before. Like, what he's saying here is not technically wrong. Technically speaking, what he is saying is not incorrect. The problem becomes, dog, ultimately the buck stops with you, and there are policies and positions and things that you can do to significantly mitigate the fucking problem. And for whatever reason, like, Twitch does not want to do any of that because it's expensive to do that. And that's the main criticisms that I would agree with, and that I also have.
Those people that you don't want engaging with you and participating with you aren't there. You know, when I use other short form content and people say all sorts of stuff, well, I can't stop that. But when I live stream, they basically don't bother me. Now, what happened yesterday obviously was something that we care deeply about, securing this environment. You know, we're looking very closely at everything that happened there, and I care deeply about Emmy. She's a friend of mine, and so I want to see how we can support her to do that. But this is just something we have to keep working on. I think everyone identifies our tools in terms of trust and safety as the leaders in the industry about helping creators, but that means there's always more work to be done because that's the world we live in now.
Demi had posted earlier today that I guess this fan was allowed to cross multiple barriers at TwitchCon. Why should, I guess, streamers trust Twitch to keep them safe at TwitchCon? Because I feel like simultaneously this has been such a secure event to the point that even like journalists have had struggled. Like, you know, it is very secure, but you know, here's this man that just walks up and is somehow able to bypass all these things. So why should they trust the platform when slip-ups or, you know, issues like this have happened?
Right. Well, I mean, as you know, I think you toured some of what we do in terms of security. The reality is, even as you do a lot in terms of security in today's world, there are challenges that can present themselves, especially when someone is putting themselves out there, right? And so, you know, we try to work very closely with each creator about what they want to do and what works for them. So I don't want to get into any, you know, specifics or details, but part of that is working with creators and, you know, trying to find them. Right now, we're definitely, you know, ramping it up.
Okay. Here's the problem with this sort of position, right? Then why would you fire Emiru's personal fucking security guard? Because this is another position that I've also talked about before. For whatever reason, it seems like Twitch specifically here and Dan Clancy seems to be very, very afraid of any sort of reprisal and lawsuit in particular that potentially could happen. Because that's the only thing that I can fucking think of. And I'm just like, okay, in terms of Emiru's old security guard, right? Because this is the sort of position that we're talking about here, right? So in terms of that in particular, we can talk about what you guys can do, the sort of positions that you have. Not positions, maybe. These sort of things that you can do to help mitigate that sort of problem, right? Like, if you're so afraid of a fucking lawsuit from whatever fucking weirdo wants to bring it against some random security guard, there's positions that you can take / have where you can essentially be like, listen, this is a private security guard hired by one of our streamers. Guy is not under us in particular. I don't know why you're fucking talking about this, generally speaking. So I think like the sort of being afraid of a lawsuit argument is weak in particular, right? But I think the bigger issue, and this is something that CDawg VA, specifically Connor, has said before, I think it's more about the exclusivity contracts that Twitch probably has with security firms, which is a very, very fucking common thing. I think that's what it is in particular.
To make sure creators know that we have the resources there to help them figure out what's right for them.
We've also seen this record assault on free speech by the Trump administration and efforts to increasingly target online speech, obviously targeting platforms like yours. What are you doing to protect freedom of expression on the internet?
The good news is so far, I think we already were in a slightly different place. You know, we have a set of community guidelines that focus not on what you say, but how you say it, okay? And we're very serious about trying to figure out how to apply those consistently across. And so far, we have not had any challenges in terms of the areas you're talking about. I think that's in part because, you know, we've always been sort of balanced in terms of that. And I think there's something about live that makes it, you know, less prone to...
Oh, man. Like, all the dumb fuck right-wingers are going to be upset about that line in particular, and I don't disagree with the sort of position that's being taken here by fucking Dan Clancy. Listen, hey, right-wingers, I'm jingling the fucking keys here. If you didn't want to be banned off of all platforms for the miserable shit that you say and fucking believe, maybe you should stop fucking saying that shit. Because nobody fucking likes it, everyone disapproves of it, and you people can go fucking fuck yourselves. Genuinely, like, instead of shirking responsibility like Facebook, Twitter, and all these other supposed quote-unquote free speech bastions that exist on the fucking internet, don't want their platforms to become advertiser poison, Nazi-infested, bot-written fucking shitholes, like Twitter is in particular. There is an important sort of set of standards and community safety and moderation teams that are necessary to be able to have a successful, well-liked, engageable sort of platform. That's what you fucking need. Not this, like, laissez-faire free speech dip fuckery that all these, like, ostensible fucking weirdos want. Because, listen, Gab, there's a reason why nobody gives a fuck about Gab or 8kun or 8chan or whatever. They all became infested shitholes and dens filled with Nazis and child pornography. So it's just like, okay, bro, nice fucking meme, dude.
some of the challenges that happen on other platforms.
They tried to, for some reason, involve you guys in the Charlie Kirk stuff, wanted to haul you in front of Congress. I think that hearing is sort of indefinitely postponed. But are you doing anything to sort of proactively ensure that you can sort of protect the people on your platform from government pressures around speech?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, as you talk about proactively do it, the biggest thing is you need to be ready to respond when there's a challenge, right? So we are, if that happens, and it hasn't happened, I think people express a wide range of views on the platform, and there hasn't been a big issue there. But we're ready if something does, challenge us.
Why do you think that you guys got dragged into that when it was like sort of following the Charlie Kirk shooting? Didn't seem to be any connection.
There's no connection. I think it's purely what I'll call is company association. They need some number of N people. If you did a cluster of companies that, end up having users that overlap, and you had Reddit and Discord and Steam, and you say, tell me the fourth company, and you can't mention one of the big ones because you have to have balance. You can't mention X or Facebook or YouTube. Then it's like, well, what's the fourth? So it's proximity. I don't think, to me, I'm not that worried about it because I think, he had no experience. We do not have this problem of radicalization on Twitch. It's a public forum. We don't have these private groups. One way to think of it is, if you really view this from a honest and sincere perspective, these things are trying to get information. And to be honest, they probably don't know that much about Twitch, right? They're not Twitch users. So I feel really good that we have, in terms of them trying to understand this landscape, they'll realize, oh, Twitch doesn't really fit with these other ones.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I totally agree with what Dan is fucking saying here. Let's be quite honest here. Because again, if we want to talk about dens of quote-unquote radicalization, Twitter, like 4chan, YouTube can also be thrown into this. Yet none of those, or Facebook as well, none of them were called up to go to fucking Congress. It's only CEOs of social media platforms that are ostensibly more left-leaning in the minds of the Trump administration that were being called up for some fucking reason. I wonder why that might be the fucking case. Oh, almost because it was almost meant to be fucking partisan with these people. Always.
I feel like we're talking about a group of lawmakers that probably don't know how to turn their computers on, so I don't know how familiar they are with Twitch. I mean, it seems like a lot of people in Congress are certainly familiar with figures like Hassan Piker, who was brought up at the mayoral debate for some God knows reason why. And I'm curious, like, when you look at top talent and also efforts to deplatform top talent, especially from not just from the government, but these really intense like pressure campaigns that come from sort of like other big voices online, even the media, to deplatform, censor people. How do you guys navigate that as a platform, and what do you do to ensure that big creators can continue to remain on Twitch? Because we've seen other platforms cave to public pressure to deplatform their own creators.
Right. I think a big part of it is having a clear North Star. Like, you need to understand what your policy is and what you think is right, and then you need to be willing to just consistently apply it. The reality is, in today's social media world, no matter what you do, there will be those people who want to attack you in some. So you can't make decisions to avoid any type of, backlash from some vocal group. No matter what decision you make, you're going to have that. So given that, you can't do it by trying to avoid or ban or whatever, right? You just have to say, okay, what do we think is right for our platform? And then just stick to your guns, and over time, that's going to make sure you can continue what you're doing. Because as you say, it's important for our creators to feel like we're going to consistently apply these things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is so well and good, and obviously.
I mean, I don't disagree with what's being said here. The problem is that very often Twitch can be rather fucking inconsistent with these things. Like, a lot of creators have felt like Twitch can be rather inconsistent with a lot of their fucking positions in terms of certain positions with the fucking TOS and with the differing ideas that they have. And I don't really disagree with that. Like, Boy Meets Mini can attest to this. If a dumbass wants to be, like, stupid, annoying, and wants to just do, like, a fucking brigade or whatever and just be incredibly fucking irritating, they can do that, right? Like, no one can fucking stop some dumbass from being a stupid, annoying fucking dumbass, right? Like, that's 1000% entirely the fucking case. And there's plenty of people that you should never fucking treat honestly, I think, under fucking any circumstance. I would say this applies to anyone with fucking right-leaning beliefs. I'm going to be quite honest. I don't care if I'm going to be perceived as being partisan in this or whatever, because no one on the fucking right should ever be fucking treated honestly. These people are not to be fucking believed. They are active, knowing fucking grifters, and they say it consistently and all the fucking time, right? And that's what it is. Like, it's the problem is also part of the fucking social media environment that we're in right now, as I was explaining earlier, which is highly favorable to the right because they already, like, as a prerequisite to be a right-winger, you must already engage in the fucking death of subjectivity to basically be wholeheartedly incapable of being able to engage in the shoes of another fucking person in order to understand what they think and what they ultimately fucking believe in. And this is a very consistent pattern of behavior and an issue that has stemmed from the right as a byproduct of the first Trump administration, of the current Trump administration, of Gamergate, of Transgate, all of these stupid fucking like idiotic attempts for the right wing to want to stay culturally fucking relevant is what has led ultimately to this fucking position. They are the fucking common denominator. They are the fucking issue here. So it's one of those situations where it's just like, honestly, like, if social media companies, even back in the day, before the Trump administration, during your Jack Dorsey Twitter days or whatever, they had to do special carve-outs for fucking conservative accounts because for them, for social media companies rather, money talks. They're all private institutions. If they were fucking publicly owned, this wouldn't be a fucking problem. And all these motherfuckers would be fucking banned, as they should be, because they are consistent breakers of any fucking terms of service of any fucking platform that these miserable piles of garbage generally fucking engage in, right? So if we were trying to be ethical and consistent in terms of our beliefs and positions on stuff, the conservatives would have been thrown out fucking years ago. But guess what? They drive a lot of people to the platform, a lot of engagement, a lot of advertiser bucks. And so, what ultimately speaks in that situation? The money.
Obviously agree with you, but then it's really hard, and I empathize with executives going through this when you are in the midst of those campaigns and people are calling your advertisers, right, or targeting these people, like, to really hold firm. And I'm curious.
Fucking Dan Clancy, not Dan Clancy, Dan fucking Saltine Cracker, the fucking weirdo stalker, that schizophrenic fucking freak, along with, like, Ethan Klein and a bunch of other, like, miserable wretches who just, generally speaking, make social media platforms 10 times worse to fucking engage with. We'll call out people. Tectone, Asmongold, all the anti-woke sort of content creators, your Grums of the world, Smash JTs. God, there's so many fucking different people that you can, like, throw into this sort of position. We could talk about the conservative pundits, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Steven Crowder, although he's not really all that relevant to be honest. Who else can we throw in here? There's a whole fucking gaggle of them, a whole collection. Critical Drinker, Shoe on Head. If we want to talk about why social media is as miserable to engage with as it is, it's because of these motherfuckers who are wholeheartedly incapable of engaging in any form of subjective thinking and are wholeheartedly incapable of engaging in thinking about how people think and engage with the environments around them, because they're not interested in any of that. For them, it's all about maintenance of hierarchy and control. They just want to subjugate people who they perceive as being radically different from them. That's all that it is with these people.
Has it ever been difficult to navigate that, especially with Amazon as a sort of a parent company as well?
Well, I think Amazon's been very supportive. Some of this is you just got to play the long game. That's one thing I have to do. At times people will attack me, and you just need to look forward and realize, nope, keep going, play the long game. This is the world we live in now.
Yeah. Speaking of Amazon, Twitch sort of started out, or was acquired a long time ago, right, as sort of build out Amazon Gaming. It's sort of gone through like all these different iterations. I'm curious, I think Twitch has had 4 years of declining users, struggling to make a profit. How should creators feel about the future of Twitch? And, Amazon is have you ever worried, I guess, that they're concerned about the fact that Twitch isn't growing or that it's not meeting their ultimate goals?
Well, this I'd say, the one part as you're saying that I would disagree with in terms of when you say struggling to make a profit. Okay. Ultimately, the question is, do we have a sustainable business that works? Part of what we've been doing is looking really closely at how we run the business, right? We used to have a different approach in terms of doing these contracts with creators that were expensive, and we made a number of, tough choices with, like Korea, which was not something that because of the streaming costs. And actually, I feel
yeah, so in particular with South Korea, what Dan Clancy, this is I think a position, not a position, but a thing we've talked about before on this platform, specifically with South Korea, the telecom companies within South Korea, so that would be SKT and also KT, although they're the same thing, whatever. Samsung and all these other SKT and KT, all the esports team, that's who sponsors those esports teams in fucking Korea, blah, 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 blah. You know exactly what I'm talking about. They basically passed super heavy, like, anti-net neutrality laws. Any fucking traffic that comes into Korean sort of channels and pathways, I suppose, for lack of a better term. Bandwidth is the term I'm looking for. I'm in IT. I should fucking know this shit. In terms of the Korean sort of network, it gets either throttled or heavily fucking charged way more in comparison to what and are forced to have to pay a lot more exorbitant prices to these sort of internet service providers, the telecom companies that exist within Korea, in order to be able to use their infrastructure, because that's how it works, right? There's international cables where it'll all go through, it goes into the servers, it goes through the fucking goddamn international cables, and then it has to go into the inherent infrastructure that are maintained, generally speaking, by the different internet service providers, right? I'm in IT, I know, I definitely know about this way better than any one of you, okay? I don't give a shit. What KT and SKT, specifically what KT was doing, they were heavily upcharging foreign-born traffic coming in from other fucking countries to use their sort of bandwidth to provide service to people within South Korea in particular. And KT worked alongside and lobbied the government heavily to basically make it such that they can just charge whatever the fuck they want for other companies to use their bandwidth in order to provide services to people within South Korea. That became something that was too restrictively expensive for Twitch, and as a result, they were forced to leave because of those anti-net neutrality laws that are currently on the books within Korea. And, well, as a result, a lot of fucking goddamn creators that live in South Korea were forced to just up their bags and just, for lack of a better term, just move on to fucking Africa, which is the Twitch sort of competitor, the streaming sort of competitor within Korea. And Twitch was essentially forced out because of, a company with a monopoly in a country working alongside the fucking goddamn government. And it was with the current not the current one. It's like some liberal, stupid, conservative dumbass currently in power. But it was when the fucking fascist was in power that fucking law got passed. Because again, fascists and melding the state with fucking companies in order to secure their own fucking power. Whoa, a consistent pattern of behavior.
Very good about where our business is right now, in terms of what I'll call is the sustainability. We don't talk about where we're at now in terms of, profitability is this one point in time. Really what you want to do is understand, does our business work? When you look at the cost of content.
Well, we also have to think about it this way, and I feel like this is a thing that a lot of people like to consistently forget, I think. COVID, in terms of profitability for streaming platforms, that was not an aberrance. That was a sort of outside the norm kind of situation where people were forced to stay inside, and then they just decided to watch a lot of streams and streamers and whatnot, and just were forced to just essentially sit around and do nothing because they can't go outside, they can't do anything because there's a fucking plague currently running around in whatever country they're fucking living in. So not a good idea to outside and try to socially interact. So people decided to pass the time by watching streams instead. So it makes sense that a lot of viewership is starting to go down significantly for these fucking streaming platforms, right? I mean, it's pretty simple.
The cost of streaming, the cost of running the service, we've slimmed down our organization. So I feel actually extremely good about the health of the business. In fact, we've been doing very well in terms of the health of the business, continuing to ensure it's sustainable. It is the fact that, with the broader dynamics after COVID, but it's interesting, and I don't have it right here. When I look at the curve of our usage, if you just ignore these peaks during COVID, you still see this pattern like this, right? If you drew a line from what was happening before COVID
so
to where we are right now.
2020, basically. So 2020 was
right. If you look at 2016, if you look at 2016, 17, 18, 19, and then you look here, you see what's a line. It's just it happened to do this, right?
Oh, so he's talking about again, that's the exact same thing that I'm mentioning as well. There's a reason why there was a peak during COVID. Everyone was forced to stay inside, blah blah blah, and a lot more people were watching streams as a result, right? It's it's outside the fucking norm, right? That's what it is.
And I think that's because people had so much time, and then they were still connected, and slowly, with Twitch, it just kind of slowly, drifted out. But what we actually see, the interesting thing, when you look at what I'll call the kind of cultural significance of Twitch, it's never been higher.
Yeah.
Right? And so too often, I think we get caught up in these one metrics, right? Especially the ones that third-party services can ping.
Yeah.
Third-party services don't see how much money our creators are making.
Yeah.
That's not in our API. And by the way, third-party services, because they don't actually, they're actually estimating based upon, like, when we eliminate viewbots, third-party services detect that as viewership going down. It's like, no, viewership didn't go down. Our internal metrics were never, dealing with these viewbots. It's just
right, yeah, because that was also another thing that, because a lot of these, like, stupid dipshits, specifically social media accounts, and a lot of it is pushed by social media as well, by people who seemingly just want to have, like, a problem with fucking Twitch, right? People who are out to get Twitch are talking about how Twitch is dying because of all these, like, various reasons. And it's just because they want their, like, stupid current streamer, far-right dipshit weirdo influencer to have, undue amounts of fucking accommodation on platforms that they are generally not sort of, like, friendly with, because they just want to feel like they're fitting in with, like, mainstream fucking culture, when in reality most people fucking hate them, yada yada yada, as we all know. That's trying to think, like, that's like purely what it is. These motherfuckers, they also have, like, a lot of I guess, for lack of a better term, haters, people who just are out to get Twitch and are willing to report on anything negative possible, if it means being able to take down certain sort of platforms that they have, like, a sort of, let's just say, for lack of a better term, an out to want to get them, I suppose, right? Like, they just want to fucking get them.
You were dealing with them, and now we eliminate them. So now you infer this, and it's like, no, we don't have fewer people. Creators' revenues had not gone down. So it's a noisy signal when you look at that. But if you think from a cultural impact, it's never been bigger.
I would agree with that. I recently wrote actually about this in the Hollywood Reporter about kind of like the impact of live. It seems like live is this, like, ascendant format. At the same time, we're entering this new era of social media, though, that is so, like, AI driven, and it seems like this era of mass broadcast social maybe is also sort of more, like, declining. Like, people are not so interested in, like, posting publicly to everyone all the time. There's the rise of private social platforms. So I'm curious how you think about that cultural relevance and building that cultural relevance and maintaining that cultural relevance into the next, like, decade, as we have the rise of all these new sort of, like, synthetic, forms of media.
Well, of course, you never know how these things evolve, and I think any business is prone to see the positives as they think through these futures and say, yeah, but it's good for me. Like, that's just it. But I mean, I honestly do think, in terms of what makes us tick as human beings, we evolved to seek community. That's how we survived, and every part of our being is designed to connect with other people. And there are these things that hack that and give the impression of that, but an AI bot is not connecting with another person. It isn't. And so, like, for example, whenever people talk about AI and Twitch, I'm like, I'm not worried about AI bots taking over Twitch. If all I'm looking at is a photo, I didn't actually have there's a photo on Instagram. That's actually not a real connection. It's a two-dimensional photograph, right? And so, yeah, the two-dimensional photograph, that maybe AI, takes over two-dimensional photograph. But I will say we are four-dimensional people, because obviously we live in three-dimensional space, but in fact, all the emotion, everything else about who we are and how we change. And so I actually think with all those changes, it's almost like it fits perfectly, because more and more people are going to be yearning for some type of authenticity in their lives with other people.
One thing that I've noticed a lot is Twitch.
There's nothing ostensibly disagreeable there, I'd say. Like, I don't, like, okay. I don't think there's going to be, like, I'm trying to think, who's, like, the only AI streamer that exists who's very, very popular on the platform? That would be Videl with Neurosama. But that's not, like, generative AI. That's a bit of a different situation. From what I understand, I could be completely fucking wrong in my assessment as to how Neurosama works. But it's a sort of, well, essentially, as Videl would put it himself, it's like his fucking daughter. Like, unironically, it's like his, well, there's two of them now, the Neurosama and Evil. Does she go by Evil Sama? I have no fucking idea. Whatever. They're both AI, like, VTuber streamers, right? Unironically. Like, they have a bunch of, if I were to take a guess on how it works, I haven't seen it, because now I'm curious about how Videl made them work. He's like a fucking genius, basically. If I were to take a guess, it's probably like a huge database, maybe like a language learning model, specifically that can take certain prompts and things that people say, and they're able to sort of think and output differing sort of answers based off of that, off of like whatever database or what have you that Vidal himself might have fucking created or that he is using. I'm assuming he probably created it himself. That's my assumption that I'm going to operate off of, which takes a lot of fucking data, but you know, whatever. Whatever fucking floats your boat. Whatever like database Vidal uses in order to have Neurosama or Evil, because they probably use similar databases. They just have like differing sort of like personality traits, filters, blah 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 blah, ways that they fucking behave, blah 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 blah, and they are able to act and behave and even play games in differing ways based off of all of that data that I presume that Vidal has put into the databases for as to how Neurosama and Evil also work. I could be completely wrong, right? Probably am completely wrong, but that's just how I'm generally sort of assuming that it works. Because again, I've talked about this with generative AI. Generative AI works rather similarly as well. However, the difference is instead of the person, that being Vidal, being the main guy who inputs all of the data into Evil or Neurosama for as to how they are supposed to behave with video games, with other people, with I don't know, also like differing like social interactions and like events and whatnot, right? Like I think he's had them fucking do like singing gigs and shit like that, right? Like original songs or whatnot. That's a thing that he's done with both of the AIs that he's fucking created. The thing with generative AI is that it is essentially a void. It is a black hole of information where it will scrub the internet for every possible bit of information on the internet. Petabytes, tetrabytes of fucking data. I think is that a term? Is tetrabyte a fucking term? Is tetrabyte a term? Oh, terabyte. Whatever. You know what I fucking mean. It's a fuckload of data, right? I don't know what comes after petabytes. Whatever. Generative AI is a void that, I think it's Yoda bytes. I'm getting fucking distracted, okay? I'm having my fucking OCD moment. I'm sorry. After, like, it goes through such an incalculable amount of data where it, essentially scrubs all of it and sort of creates an amalgamation, something relatively close enough based off of the prompt that exists in order to output something that is, it's close enough. It's okay maybe in terms of what you're asking for. It might not be exact, but it's probably good enough and whatever. Fuck off onto the fucking sort of next thing, right? And that's the problem, is that it is taking data that is ostensibly not the companies. It's not OpenAI's. It's not fucking Sam Altman's. It's not fucking SPF. It's not all these like motherfuckers who created these AIs. It's not Grok's. It's not OpenAI's. It's not Sora's. It's not their data that they're scrubbing off of the internet to create things, if you can call it creation, but that's a whole other philosophical sort of discussion, where it essentially creates something that's close enough without the permission of who created that original data. If it was a consensual relationship, which is not possible, right, because that would be a whole fucking legal sort of rigmarole fuck-a-magee kind of a deal, so obviously that's not gonna fucking happen. If it was like a consensual relationship, I don't think people would really care. The problem is that no one fucking asked to have their data to be scrubbed by all of these fucking AI learning models to basically create some amalgamation of things that they have said that are not accurate or like completely fucking dog shit. And that's the main problem with generative AI in particular. I went on a little bit of a fucking tangent there about AI, but it's important to make these like sort of distinctions. And like, here's the thing. I think a lot of people on Twitch, if you talk about your average sort of Twitch chatter, they're going to be like more sort of progressive, liberal, like normie lib kind of a deal. And they already do not like generative AI because they've been, well, I would say primed to not really like generative AI, which is fine, I suppose. Like, if you were to get into a minute discussion with these people, I would hope that they were able to explain as to why they do not like generative AI for the most part. But you know, I digress here mostly. I don't think like AI, like generative AI sort of streamers, they're not going to be successful at all. Like there was this one Twitter post of some dude soying out over some generative AI video game, and it looks like the worst pile of dog shit on the fucking planet. Like it looks terrible.
Very male oriented. It seems like there's a lot of male creators. When I spend time in more female oriented, I guess, live stream spaces, like the Like to Know It app, has this like live stream space. TikTok Shop is huge. How do you think about like cultivating that female creator viewership? And are you thinking live streaming shopping is so popular and it is really popular, and especially with the women lifestyle influencers? Are you leaning into that at all or experimenting in those spaces?
I don't know the exact stats
shopping,
and
all right,
plus we can
fellas?
get them, but more and more in terms of our viewer base, it's more and more women, right? Same thing in terms of streaming. You look right now on the trip up here where you've got Cinna and Extra Emily and Emmy and Bonnie doing a trip together. There's just lots of women that are doing well in streaming. It is the fact that sometimes pure hours watched, gaming generates a lot of like bulk in hours watched, right? And it's probably the case that many of these women streamers are.
Well, it is what the platform was originally based off of, right? To be a gaming platform. Obviously, as soon as just chatting and the sort of more chatting sort of streams started to emerge, and this is a phenomenon mostly in like 2014, 2015, where this started to sort of more and more emerge. It was popular. Not everyone's always going to watch games, and Twitch wanted to ultimately fucking accommodate for that stuff. We all know about this, right?
Diversity, they're diversifying, they tend to be variety streamers. One thing that I've said broadly about our platform, we have evolved from being entertaining gamers to entertainers that game. And so I think sometimes the metrics can be a little misleading because it is the fact that there is some that can be, where the metrics, because gaming still can generate a lot of hours watched. But if you look at the clips on Twitch, and I don't have this, suppose I was able to measure third-party clip viewership on Twitch. I think you would see a lot of third-party clip viewership of women streamers. We see that we have an effort bringing over lots of folks that have been building on other platforms.
Well, a lot of that is because of like parasocial relationships and the fact that it's still a rather predominantly sort of male space. And listen, men like a nice pair of tits and ass and fucking hips. Okay, it's really, listen, monkey brain activate. They see a nice pair of fucking people want to watch. It is what it is. They see a pretty face with a pretty body with a nice rack and a potential and a nice ass or whatever. And it's just like, damn. I like that. Well, crazy. And sometimes the fucking, I don't know, the porn brain activates for them or some shit. I don't know, sometimes it really is just that simple.
To TikTok, Instagram, and a lot of women streamers there. So I do think that as live streaming evolves, interestingly, I think it's better suited for women streamers and viewers. That kind of community connection is a role that often women have played in our society, right? And when you think of other shows, other things, I think live streaming fits well for that.
Well, the content creator industry as a whole is female dominated and was built by women and continues to be
community. In other words, this kind of
true.
desire for community is something that fits very naturally. Yeah. So I see
a lot of the fucking trends are either started by women or by queer creators, and I want to say that's partially the reason that might be the case is because of part of it is like it's because of like societal sort of like norms that have existed before, but also because it's not that a lot of it is because of like the male sort of spaces being more like corporate sort of oriented, maybe. And shit like that. But also, I think it could be as a byproduct and also due to a sort of result of a lot of the freedoms and civil rights and liberties that a lot of women were given. Like 1974, the ability for women to own their own bank account and credit card was given to them. And that's like, I mean, we are mostly seeing a lot of the sort of byproducts of that, like play out, generally speaking, right?
See, as we continue to evolve kind of more broadly,
Yeah.
I see women playing a bigger and bigger role. You bring up shopping. It's something we're always keeping an eye on. Obviously, it's really big in China. Amazon has a live shopping
Which a lot
experience.
of female influencers are on and have found huge success.
Yeah. So that's something where how do we bring them over to Twitch? So it's something that, yes, we're thinking through and keeping an eye on. It is
Oh God, I hope we don't have those like stupid, because I do not like social media platforms also being used as like an avenue for fucking shopping. I'll be quite honest. Like, I don't like that either, because it does not produce a sort of very, very good environment. Parasocial like relationships being used to leverage people into potentially very, very predatory like loaning and lending structures. Like, we've talked about this in a video before. I forget the name of the fucking companies that exist on like TikTok. It's not Kalshi. Tegna, not Tegna. I've done a video on this talking about like people having to take out loans for like a $15 fucking burrito, and the fact that that is a thing that exists is really, really bad, which I think is also a potential problem that Twitch could potentially fall into because of the sort of like further enshittification and hyper commodification of like social media and differing fucking platforms.
It is a different space, but I do think there's opportunity there.
What do you think the future of live streaming is going to look like in 5 years or even 10 years down the line?
I think it's this idea, if you look at where we've been, in general, live streaming have been dominated by people who are first and foremost streamers. I think that is in part because of the origins. When live streaming started, of course, gaming, every of the competitors started out as general live streaming apps. I was at YouTube when we started YouTube Live. It was a general live streaming app. It really became gaming. Facebook Live was a general live streaming. It became gaming. Twitch was just in TV.
Yeah, this was, yeah. He's correct here. All of them used to be like general live streaming, and eventually just became gaming. This is just right on the fucking money here, and well, none of them were really able to compete with fucking Twitch. Twitch is still fucking dumb. Like, listen, we all know about these motherfuckers who love to huff their fucking copium all the time, talking about, Twitch is definitely gonna have a downfall. It's definitely a jover for Twitch, and it's just like, okay, bro, yeah, sure, I totally fucking believe that, yeah.
TV between gaming. The world has gone full circle, interestingly, from where all the apps started. But it's still the case that most of the people who, like, they're first and foremost streamers. I think the change you're seeing now is more and more people using live streaming as a secondary conduit of engaging their audience, community, or whatever. So if you go through 5 to 10 years, I think you just have more and more people that they may not be streaming 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week, but they're like, yeah, no, I need to stream 3 hours a week. If you take musicians, right? Musicians used to have this, they'd write an album, they'd tour, they'd disappear for 2 years, and they'd come back. That's not the world we live in, right? They need to stay connected to their community. And more, I think, look, if you have a fan base, like, engage
like
authentically with them.
Right?
You don't have to just play music. Do something you love.
Yeah, this is Doja Cat, right? She's also started fucking streaming as well. Cause fuck it, why not? Right? If you got nothing, like, I mean, it's a good fucking medium, right? If you want to just connect to, talk with a bunch of people, blah 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 blah. She's always gonna have like an inherent big fucking fan base of people who are going to fucking follow her. Despite her fucking checkered past and whatnot, but it's so fucking, like, people ultimately do want those fucking relationships to continue further and further and further. Considering the sort of like ridiculously hyper commodified world that we live in right now, like I mentioned earlier, like, it's been the goal of the rich, of the billionaire, to essentially commodify every aspect of life as per capitalist realism from Mark Fisher, right? And I mean, not that like Dan Clancy's above that sort of same thing fucking applies to him here. Like, obviously, like, Twitch also plays into that further stratification and commodification of social fucking interactions. Twitch also is a part of the particular problem here, but there are also actors that are significantly fucking worse. But I do think that, like, a lot of people should go out and fucking touch some grass sometimes and learn how to build rapport and local fucking community, besides with like all the shit that they with all the people that they know online, generally speaking, right? Like, Twitch is not beneath these sort of exact same criticisms that I've had before.
right? Knit. So I think you'll see more, and we see that right now when you see, the stud buds with WNBA.
Love the stud buds.
Yeah, like
obsessed with that.
I think that is the poster child. Think of more and more these folks that are doing it when it works for them.
I have no idea who these people
but they
are.
don't have to do it all the time. And so if I'd say with 5 to 10 years, it's like everyone that's an entertainer, athlete, musician, influencer.
So streaming just becomes another content format, almost like short form is a content format. I agree with you on that, actually. And I think that has, people have been predicting that switch to happen, and I don't think it's since 2015 or even before, but I think you're probably right. Another thing that, is big right now in this sort of creator world is this shift and this sort of like merging with traditional Hollywood. You're at the Screen Time conference last week, and it seems like a lot of these social platforms, and really the creators on the social platforms, are doing these big time deals with, Darman doing like a Tubi deal. Samsung is giving all these deals.
I believe that Justin Bieber also had a fucking God, who remembers Justin Bieber? Like, listen, if you were in junior high in my fucking time, you would not go like 3 centimeters without hearing this fucking motherfucking squeaky ass Stratford kid born in fucking Stratford. Okay, trust me, I knew all about that shit. Okay, Justin Bieber started fucking streaming on Twitch as well, and he's like a little bit of a weirdo now or something. I don't know, like. Something, religious epiphany or something, whatever.
To creators, like it seems like there's just this merging. What do you think of this sort of like merging of traditional entertainment with the creators?
So obviously we encourage it. I think it's a great opportunity for our creators. I think the world is just becoming more what I'll call creator-centric. And I think that is about that kind of connection. When you think of Hollywood movies, right, a movie creates a character. It's not who the actor is, right? But more and more you see these people where it's who they are that is appealing to people, right? I often say if you look at Kevin Hart in some ways is IP, right? Kai is IP, right? And the world is moving more and more where people want connection to and by creator, that includes actor, right? In terms of who they are. And you see that by now having these creators now having these vehicles, but these vehicles are usually focused on them. They aren't really actors taking on something.
I don't know if I 100% agree with this, right? I guess it's a sort of broader byproduct of just the mentality that Hollywood is in right now. They're still stuck in like old ways where they just generally do not want to improve with the times and have their actors become more like social media influencer sensations because they can see that as not being profitable for their movies that they want to push, right? I think that's generally speaking I think that's not like a ridiculous or hyperbolic thing to say. I think because there's a really good Adam Conover video about this, talking about how Hollywood does not really advertise or like not advertise. That's not correct to say. How Hollywood does not really celebrate or he's not really able to sort of capitalize on the fucking fame of people anymore. And I think it's because of a byproduct of being behind in the sort of times, right? Of like more creative like liberties and freedoms and mediums being changed and whatnot. Because like what fucking Hollywood actor do you know of that's like a modern Hollywood actor or something? Like you can think of like Tom Holland, Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya. That's about it. Like Gal Gadot, I suppose. Those are like the only actors that are like more recent upcoming actor. Gal Gadot's not really an upcoming actor. Like I'm trying to think. Like there's not that many that immediately pop into my brain. But that's because I don't really engage with those sort of mediums. So I'm probably not the best sort of person to ask this. But then again, I might also be the best person to sort of ask this because I'm like super normie, I suppose, in terms of engaging with like movie properties and whatnot. I would say in terms of that position. But like a lot of people don't really know about who's like a big famous like Hollywood movie actor anymore because of just honestly the mediums broadly speaking sort of just being constrained and destroyed in terms of like its artistic and creative liberties and freedoms. And I mean Twitch is probably at the forefront of that and is okay, and it hasn't seen that sort of general capital consolidation as much quite yet, which is why it's not the worst for them, and people still broadly speaking know of people like iShowSpeed or Kai Cenat or other people who have like become more household sort of names in this sort of space, I suppose. Or like Mr. Beast, for example, right? And why these people are sort of like household sort of names in content creation, social media kind of spaces, blah blah blah, right? And a lot of that is because of, I would say, the fact that Hollywood has essentially become extremely constrained about pushing out as much like attempted blockbuster content and oversaturation, because again, for these people, it's all about trying to make as much money as fucking possible instead of allowing a flow of like creative, new, fresh ideas to be able to take the forefront. Like we all know about like the nostalgia pandering that consistently happens now in like Hollywood, for example. It's broader criticisms of how capital accumulation is a very often a constrainer upon like creative liberties and freedoms.
Some other character.
Yeah.
They are who they are. And I often say, I mean, really, the rise of podcasting is the rise of the creator economy. Anyone who has a podcast, it's a creator-centric. It's premium UGC content.
Which we're seeing these podcasts now, you know, moving to Netflix and et cetera. And hopefully we see a lot more. I feel like one thing that's shifted in the past few years on Twitch is this more structured programming, like Streamer University or something, like really, like obviously what Kai's doing so much in his like subathons and stuff. Could you see something like that, like getting that content onto like a streamer?
Absolutely. I think all these
Streamer
things.
meaning like Netflix platform.
I know, absolutely. I think all these things are kind of blending and merging, and we used to have this concept of premium and UGC as phrases. The way I describe it is there's a parameter, which is how many human hours go into create an hour of content. So if you create a podcast, it might be 50, okay? Somebody showing up, waking up, turning on their computer and starting to game, it might be 1.01, because they just game, they stop, they're done, they're the only one. Avatar the movie, it might be 100,000, I don't know what it is, right? But there isn't any line. Streamer University took more human hours for every hour of content. Mafiathon took a certain number, right? Reality TV, interesting, is like starting from there and coming this way. And when you know, it's like, okay, we want something that's a little cheaper sometimes to produce than some of the stuff we were creating before. And so what you have is the two sides are just kind of coming like that, and then they're different platforms, but I think the idea is these platforms will be overlapping, and our specialty will always be community.
Oh yeah, 1000%. By the way, like obviously, I don't know, just to speak to myself in particular, like when I'm done, I download my VODs and then I edit them into segments and I upload them onto fucking YouTube, right? Like that's there's human cost in terms of time and hours and labor there that I'm putting in order to put together like YouTube videos, right? And I'm also, well, I'm not like putting in a ton of production effort. I would say first off, I don't have the resources for that, and second off, like I'm not really like, it's not like 100% necessary for a lot of the fucking segments that I make. You know, I know how to do some fucking basic editing tricks, I suppose. I've done them before. It's not the worst thing. I can figure it out. Like watch a little YouTube tutorial. They do a great job of explaining it. Yada 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 yada. I could probably learn how to make cleaner cuts. That's probably the thing that I should really learn how to do, is how to make cleaner cuts. That I can agree with in terms of like a self-reflection. But yeah, like this is a good point, talking about these sort of like human sort of cost behind a lot of content creation and what is necessary to put in for like production and whatnot. Because I mean, this environment is the new sort of like media, sort of like TV station kind of a deal. There's producers, there's editors, there's thumbnailers as well. That's a particular aspect. Annotators, right? Making those fucking chapters for people to be able to skip to, blah 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 blah. You know, shit like that, right?
We talk with Prime Video as an example. You know, we've talked about various ideas. I won't say who is talking about some ideas with them. And part of it is creatively thinking, okay, but if you really want community, those platforms are community platforms. So that you're not going to get. So how do you, and so a lot of the blend is saying, oh, but I still want that community in that live.
Last question, because I don't have much time. What emergent trends are you seeing sort of in the creator space coming up on Twitch? Like what sort of interesting user behaviors are you noticing, trends that you think are interesting and worth paying attention to?
Well, the most interesting one is all that's happening in the clipping world. That's one reason why we're doing the auto clips. If you look at, groups like FaZe or Marlin or Jinxie, and I've talked to all of them, a lot of their rise has come because they just literally will create hundreds of clips from a single stream, often posting them while the stream is still live. I think that's something that is really a big part now, and that's one reason why we're investing to make it easier, not just for big creators, but medium and small creators to do that.
Yeah, it's all about clipping. Like, clipping, shipping, sending all that shit out. Listen, clippers, clip and ship that shit, that's just that. That's how one goes viral, I suppose, for lack of a better term nowadays.
The clipping stuff is really insane. It is wild. There's all these clipping agencies and everything. Dan, thank you so much for your time.
All right. Well, thank you, Taylor.
All right, that's it for this week's show. Thank you so much again to Stream Elements for helping me record and...
Okay, I think, yeah, that's about it. Taylor does her own little thing. Interesting conversation overall. Lots of things to go into. Obviously, this sort of whole position, if we're talking about the problems that people are going to have, again, with the TwitchCon security stuff, Buck ultimately stops with you there, Dan. You have power, resources in order to be able to stop that. I've made suggestions before, but ultimately it was an interesting conversation. Things to look into, things to learn about and think about in terms of like the broader sort of environment that we find ourselves in, right? Like looking at you dipshits like Asmongold, Tectone, Ethan Klein, and a whole other gaggle of dipshits and morons who have created this sort of like dog shit social media fucking environment, and broader sort of commodification of media also playing into this quite heavily. It was an interesting conversation, lots to learn about. Still, again, ultimately the responsibility for what happened to Emiru comes down on you, Dan Clancy. You are the ultimate sort of main, I guess, final stop, who needs to do a much better job in terms of bringing about security for your own fucking creators and whatnot. But yeah, overall interesting conversation. I would say a solid interview. Lots to like think about, learn about, criticize, as I've hopefully done. Talk about like overall sort of like media trends and stuff like that. And these are all things that I've just broadly sort of like noticed myself, just like do pattern observation. I am a little bit of a fucking autist, okay? I'm a little bit autistic, folks. Just a little autist. I took all my Tylenol. Remember, folks, if you want to become autistic like me, you gotta take your fucking Tylenol, folks. Very, very important. But yeah, overall, like, yeah, media forefront, death of subjectivity, a lot of, like, a general conservative backlash is due to what is perceived as like transgate and woke culture emerging, which is now going to have a backlash to all the dumb fuck like conservative dip fuckery and bullshit that's happening because nobody fucking likes any of their bullshit in reality. But yeah, interesting conversation, lots to fucking think about to ultimately learn about. And grifters are also always going to be grifters. That's also another aspect of all of this. So people like XQC and Asmongold and Tectone, right? These people are just going to be grifters and they're just going to play to whatever particular crowd that makes them the most fucking money possible, right? So again, if there is one thing overall in terms of the whole general broader criticisms to everything that I bring in terms of the interview, problems with Twitch, problems with the creator economy and stuff like that, it's all about money in the end, right? Money's the ultimate thing that fucking talks, and overall, that is the always going to be, I guess, the sort of like main problem in I guess, broader general society. It is people's inner desire to just want to make as much money and all of the money possible. But yeah, I don't think there's really much else to say besides it is overall an interesting conversation to sort of like think about and engage in.